Hello again. Now, this time I want to talk about knives that I think would be better suited for carrying in a city. Now, before I begin, I'm definitely not any kind of legal expert, and you really should follow your own judgment on this, and of course, check up on the law and what it says. Don't just take my word for it. Now, in this video, this is just going to be my opinion. This is just what I think. This is actually what I do, and this is what I'm doing to keep myself safe. Now, when I say keep myself safe, I repeat, I am not talking about self-defense. Self-defense has nothing at all to do with this, and I think it's really important to mention that. So what am I talking about here? Well, in the UK, as I'm sure you already know, our knife laws are so strict. Like, they are very restrictive. Perhaps they're not the most restrictive in the world, but it's up there. It is very strict. What is the law? If you don't already know, you can carry a knife so long as it's a folding knife with a cutting edge of less than 3 inches and is non-locking. Okay, with that out of the way, let's look at some of those, because there's a really important point to this. This knife actually meets those standards, that actually meets those specifications. This knife is a folding knife, it is non-locking, and the cutting edge is less than 3 inches. So you can legally carry this. Does that mean you should? Well, depends how you want to look at it. I mean, if you're in a place that doesn't have too much knife crime, I think you'd be okay. However, if you're in a city, like, let's say you're in a city like London or Edinburgh, Glasgow, somewhere with a really high population, don't take this knife there. This is just my opinion. I really would not do that. I mean, we all know at this point that London seems to have a bit of an issue with knife crime. Now, I'm saying this as my advice to you. This is just my opinion. You legally can carry this, and legally it should be okay. Like, the police should not take this off you unless you're acting in a threatening manner. Now, if you're doing anything threatening, if you're flashing this knife, you know, you're on the subway and you're opening it, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. That's something that can get you arrested. If you tell people you're going to stab them, if you carry this for self-defense, that's obviously a crime. But for the most part, you know, put it this way, I can stick this knife in my pocket right now and walk outside, and I can go for a walk. That's legal. And I can also go into Asda and buy myself something to eat with this knife in my pocket, so long as I do not flash it around, do not take it out, that sort of thing. Now, if you're in a city like London, which has a lot of knife crime, I really would recommend you not take this knife. Now, I'm not saying don't carry a knife. Now, once again, this is just my opinion, but this knife, compared to other options, looks rather threatening. I mean, put it this way, if you're into guns, I'm sure you've heard the argument that black guns are more scary than wooden guns. I think that's honestly ridiculous, because either way, they're all doing the same thing. They're all forcing a piece of metal down a tube. Really, so I don't know what difference the colour makes, but this, you know, this is black, it looks tactical. It's got a sort of almost menacing looking blade, according to some people. You know, it's got that finger choil which really does stop it from getting closed, and it's one-handed opening. I mean, if you're sitting in the middle of London and you do that, whip it out of your pocket, open it up one-handed, and start eating an apple, that's going to intimidate a lot of people. Let me give you Let me give you another example of this. CRKT Longmire, similar type deal, perhaps a slightly less threatening, but, you know, pretty similar in style and length, etc. One-handed opening. You know, these are kind of threatening knives, and to a lesser extent, but still I think, even a Spyderco Squeak. I mean, knives like these, for most people who don't understand knives, these are going to be threatening. So knives like these, I recommend, if you're going into a city, not to carry them. Now, if you're already in a city, or you frequent a city and you carry knives like these and you've not got a problem, that's great, and I'm happy for you. That's great. I don't think anyone should get into trouble with knives, but this is just, you know, just my thoughts. Now, let's move on to what kind of knives I think you should carry. Now, personally, I'm of the mindset that absolutely everyone should have a knife in their pocket at all times, whenever it is possible. So let's look at some that would be a lot more friendly. Say the police was to stop you and they saw it, you had it on you, for whatever reason they were going to search you, and they found your knife. Well, there's some knives that would be better if they found on you than others. To me, the most obvious would be the Swiss Army knife. I mean, everyone knows and recognises the Swiss Army knife. The majority of people thinks this is not a weapon. I mean, some people are determined that this is a weapon either way. But the Swiss Army knife was a small but very capable blade. You could do almost anything with a blade of a Swiss Army knife, really. I mean, there's loads of options, and not only that, they're multifunctional, and there's so many different tool sets, so many different colours, different styles. Some have fancy patterns on them. In fact, here's a blue jelly one. This is a really nice looking one. You know, there's a Swiss Army knife out there for everyone, and obviously there's all these other fantastic tools, you know, screwdrivers, scissors, etc. And I mean, they're so much more friendly than, you know, those other knives I showed you earlier. In fact, I'm just going to quickly do a comparison. This here is a Victorinox Compact. Anything Victorinox I think should be suitable except the locking models, which would be illegal to carry anyway. This is a Victorinox Compact. It's a 91mm 2-layer Swiss Army knife. Reasonably affordable at £30. Let's just compare that again to the Boker Plus XS. You'll notice that this knife appears quite frequently on my channel. I think it's quite a relevant knife in terms of popularity, price, functionality and legality. I mean, you could see there that the blade length isn't too dissimilar. However, one of these knives are a lot less likely to get you into trouble. Now, you can see the length is similar, but I'd suggest the police would confiscate this and arrest you far quicker than they would with something like this. So for me, that's actually why I prefer to carry something like a Swiss Army knife. Now, of course, I do carry this on occasion, but to me, it's actually less functional than a Swiss Army knife. I mean, Swiss Army knives are just more versatile, I think. And it does not have a one-hand opening blade. So, you know, for some people, the fact that you can open it in one hand, it just doesn't help your situation. I mean, some people think, well, why do you need it to open one hand? Now, for us, knife guys, knife girls, if there's any of you there, it's more convenient, it's more enjoyable, it's quicker. But to some people, you know, they conclude that that's so you can, you know, whip it out and scare someone, stab them, etc. And like I said, I think most Swiss Army knives would be suitable. Now, other than a Swiss Army knife, if that doesn't take your fancy, I'd suggest something traditional, such as this case. Now, case knives are kind of expensive. It doesn't have to be a case. It could be even those much cheaper knives, the Rough Riders. This here is a case. What's it called? I always forget. Medium Stockman. This has 3 blades. These cost about 60 quid off Heine Haynes. However, if you get a Rough Rider instead of a case, you're looking at about £12, so significantly cheaper, and it'll do the same thing. Difference being, this is made in America, Rough Riders are made in China. Case are just a much higher quality. But there are very sort of traditional, as I like to call them, granddad knives, because these are, you know, these are very old design. We have 3 blades. We've got a clip point, a sheep's foot, and a pen blade. So we've got a lot of cutting capabilities here in a small package. And again, I'm just going to compare it to the Swiss Army knife and to the Boker Plus XS, so you can get an idea what we're working with here. So you can see there that case knife is far less threatening, even with that clip point. Now, I do have some other knives to suggest here. Number 5, Opinel. Now, these are good for a number of reasons. Now, I would suggest this is a little more threatening over the Swiss Army knife. Some people think that the police would be more lenient towards these than the Swiss Army knife, but this has only got 1 blade, therefore it's not really seen as much as multifunctional in my view. And again, I'm just going to compare it to the SAC Compact. Similar size blade. I still think the Victorinox is going to be, or Wenger if that's what you want, if you're able to find any. And I like to carry a Wenger occasionally. Similar size blade. I just think that the Swiss Army knife is more universally recognised and it's far less threatening. Here's another one. This is probably going to be seen more of an old man's knife once again, and I think that will work in your favour. Like the case knife, this is made of bone. I'm not really sure what kind of bone that is. No, wait a minute, sorry, this is stag. I forgot I got this. Is this stag? Yeah, I'm sure this is stag. Anyway, this is called the Arthur Wright of Sheffield Ettrick. Another very traditional pattern with a Warrincliffe blade. A very short blade, very non-threatening. In fact, this is a sort of wood carving knife. Something like this would be good for whittling wood and cutting fruit. Now that is providing you're able to sharpen it. This is one of those knives that I'm finding difficult to sharpen. But here we are, side by side. Other options, I think a Leatherman, a non-locking Leatherman like the Juice. Now these are kind of expensive. At the time of purchase I paid 60 quid for this. These are now closer to 100, which is a real shame. But these have small, non-threatening blades like the Swiss Army knife, and it has a lot of capability. So I think the police would be far more lenient towards a knife like this. Whoops. Opposed to a knife like this. I hope you can see where I'm going with this. In fact, I'm just going to leave that one out there. Better still, an even smaller one. I mean, I think the smaller the better, really, as long as it doesn't have a lock. Leatherman Squirt. Look at the size of that tiny little blade. I really don't see the police having much issue with this, especially if you're in a big city, one where there's high knife crime. Either way, if you're carrying a knife and the police find you, expect them to question you about it. One thing I do suggest is you have a copy of the law on your phone. Type in UK knife law and you should eventually come across a government article. It tells you that it is legal to carry a non-locking sub 3-inch blade pocket knife. If I was you, I would go onto that website and take a screenshot of it and save it. That way, if the police try to challenge you, you could say, hey look, this is what the government says. I mean, the government is the ones that makes the law after all. And finally, I think the very best option that you could possibly go for when it comes to a really friendly knife that you can carry almost anywhere, that's legal everywhere, and that most people won't batter an eyelid over unless you're in a school, which you shouldn't be taking knives to school anyway. If you're in school, don't take knives to school. It's not a good idea. You're going to get in trouble. Excuse me. Something like this. I mean, what? That's absolutely tiny. What are you going to do with that? It's absolutely useless. Well, no, not really. It's another Swiss Army knife. Yeah, the blade is tiny, but you could still get a surprising amount done with that, depending on what it is you need to do. I mean, this blade is so small. It's about 1.5 inches long. It's extremely thin. I mean, even if you really wanted to, you're not going to do much damage with that. Still, I wouldn't go flashing about. I mean, this is the perfect size to fit on your keys. And it fits really nicely in the bottom of your watch pocket, so it's, you know, really not an inconvenience. It's multifunctional. Of course, it's got the scissors and it's got the nail file, the screwdriver, the toothpick and tweezers, and these are affordable. You can get these for about £15 off most places. So I think that, in my view, is one of the best knives you can choose for carrying in a place where, you know, knives would be frowned upon. Now, if you want something like that with more capabilities, by the way, this is the Victorinox Classic. Now, it's a classic because it has the, well, where is it? Has the nail cleaner opposed to the screwdriver. If you want the version with a screwdriver instead of the nail cleaner, that is the Classic SD, so SD for screwdriver. If you want something similar to that with more capabilities, we have the Mini Champ, but these are about 40 or 50 quid, but they do have a lot more capabilities. I mean, these have 2 blades, pair of scissors, you know, just a lot of functionality in such a tiny package. So that pretty much concludes today's videos. Hopefully, if you're still with me here, you'll have a little think about what I said. You know, this is just my opinion. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but personally, this is what I do. I mean, if I ever go to Edinburgh, which I do occasionally, I leave all my knives at home, except I'll take a Victorinox Classic, because at least that way I've still got a knife on me. But if the police do take issue, or I do want to search me or whatever, at least I've got something that in their eyes, hopefully at least, will be a little bit more friendly. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and well, if you've got any questions or comments or anything you'd like to say, anything you'd like to add, your experience with it, anything at all, please leave your comments down in the comment section. I try to respond to them all. At the very least, I read all of your comments. So that about does it. Thank you very much for watching. Consider liking and subscribing. I'll see you again soon.